everyone. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock on the start of your Thursday morning.
Ooh.
Glad you're with us for Second Cup. I am so thrilled that it's almost Friday.
Thank God.
And there's so much going on this weekend, so many things to do around Western New York. I do want to say this, though. Having a weekend without football lately is kind of like, well, what do you do on a Sunday?
I know, it's tough. I mean, they're the best day for relaxation, obviously. You get to sit and chill, but it's so nice to have some football in the background, eat some wings, have some pizza. So I'm missing that a little bit.
But it's so cool because, if you're missing the Bills, or you're just kind of bummed about the season, or you're looking forward to the 2026 season when they play at the new Highmark Stadium, there's an opportunity for you. And I think it's kind of cool. I know you're kind of like, I don't really know about this.
It's a little bit of a silly opportunity. So, I mean, we're big into the offseason.
Yeah.
The Combine starts today in Indianapolis. Dom Tibbetts is there right now. We've got the draft happening next month. A lot to be excited about. But right now, you can go buy a rock from the pit.
I kind of think it's cool.
I think it's cool. I think it's a nice idea. So these are the rocks, and Buffalo Rock Pile is the company. They're two local people. I guess they somehow bought some of the rocks from the pit, from the construction site of the new stadium.
Right.
And when they got those rocks, they were like, oh, this is going to be cool. It's a memento. We're going to put it in our garden in the backyard. But they had some pieces of those big boulders break off.
Right.
And they were like, we've got an opportunity here. I applaud their thinking, because why didn't I think of this? They're going to make a ton of money, and it's also a great idea because it's going to a good cause. They're donating some of the proceeds to some people in need, which is awesome. But at its core, this is silly. Why are you buying a rock?
I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. I think that if you're buying something that is, kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Sentimental.
I promise you I can go get a rock right now, and if I told you it was from Orchard Park, you'd be like, oh my God.
Well, but at the same time, like, it's actually, so if you drive down Route 20 or
Sure.
20A, right by ECC South, right before you get in, and this is what we were talking about earlier this morning, there is this huge rock pile. It's behind fencing, so you can't just go. But it's all the stuff that was taken out of the ground, apparently. And I feel like that's just so cool. Like, I don't know, you, I guess, can own a piece of history. You buy the turf when they were selling it. I don't know. I kind of think it's neat. In the 70s, people bought pet rocks.
We've come a long way. I think it's cool. I think they have like pens and stuff like that. They're selling a bunch of different things. They have pens, keychains. If this is something that's really important to you and you've really enjoyed the pit jokes and things like that, I can understand why you would buy it. I definitely think it's a great idea, and I'm sure there are people who are going to take part in this. But, like, I don't know. Like, I'm not wearing a necklace with a rock around my neck or getting a bracelet. The pens are really cool.
I mean, you can also just buy one of the rocks and just, kind of show it off, which I think is also kind of a neat idea. No, Aaron. Aaron's our editor. Right, exactly. Thank you. But you got bricks from the old pink.
But the old pink is gone. I mean, that's like a part of history. It burned down, and that's cool. You can say I have a brick from the old pink. There are only so many of those.
Yeah.
This is a rock.
Well, Noreen, if it makes you feel good, why not?
That's what I'm saying. I'm not judging anyone for buying it, and I'm certainly not judging them. It's an incredible business idea, and I think they're going to make a ton of money and raise a lot for a good cause. I just would not buy it myself.
Anita says, I collect rocks from everywhere. I started putting dates and times on them, so I remember where I got them from. I want to see what the necklaces look like. Okay,
we can pull them up in a second for you.
You know what?
We'll
I had
scroll
it
through. John, can you go through like the website and pull it up so people can see what they're potentially going to be buying?
Not for you, but for the Cuppies, anything for them.
You see how I'm treated around these parts? I'm abused constantly. I'm glad you guys got to see that. You didn't talk to Ed like that.
How do you determine authenticity?
That's what I'm saying, girl. I'm going to go get a rock out back and rub it around and then put it on a string, and I'm going to be like, oh, this is from the pit. And you wouldn't know the difference.
So James says brand them as Bill's paperweights. Also a great idea. I think it's cool. And I also kind of think that what his message was personal but corny. Like, it's a rub rock. So if you are putting it in your pocket, it's like a piece of shell, basically. See how light gray it is? But then if you rub it with the oils in your hand, it turns jet black.
And you get all of that dirty stuff on your hands.
I just think it's cool. My husband wants one, is what Kim says. The authenticity is in your heart.
Right, Anita, right.
If I saw The Rock on a cute thing at a craft show, I would maybe buy it.
Okay, so my thing is people are comparing it to like they have a piece of the odd or they have, the old pink. Those places are gone. This is a new place. Obviously, one, it's going to be famous, hopefully, and it'll stand in Orchard Park for years to come. But I think a piece of the current stadium would be cooler. Something old, something that's going to be gone.
Kind of like to Rosemary's Point here. I have a piece of the odd. It was
a gift. That's awesome. And a piece of the turf from the old stadium, like that'll do numbers. I think that's really awesome. At the end of the day, a rock is a rock.
Lori says, I nearly bought 3 immediately, so I wouldn't miss out and regret it. I'm right there with you. I kind of think it's a great idea. I mean, it's smart. Hi, Connie. Good morning to you. Glad you're with us. Can I just say, if all the live show...
Of all the live shows
WKB has, this is the best one. Too many recorded shows. Got it. You know what? We're glad to be with you. And, it's certainly an honor to be able to bring you... live coverage of Collins, for instance, or it's an honor to bring you live coverage of the corrections officer strikes and really use this platform as a way to connect with everyone, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, I think we've built a great community here amongst the Cuppies. And lately, we've seen people who are new to this community coming in, maybe chiming in for the first time. I looked at the numbers with DJ yesterday, and he said our engagement is up, our reach is up a little bit. I mean, the more we talk about things that people want to hear, and the more we're learning about what's going on at these facilities and why corrections officers are striking, I think we're engaging more people and we're growing our community here. And that's all starts with you guys.
Tina says, starts my morning. We appreciate you. And then there was one more comment I wanted to bring up about the rocks. Oh, here, it's Kelly's. What's a Gucci bag without a certificate?
I'm just saying. And I think I go to the beach and you bring back some sand from Mexico or you have a shell from the Bahamas. I think it's cool. Collect what you want to collect. And again, it's going to a great cause. So I support this wholeheartedly. If anyone, my birthday is on April 21st. Yours is on the 26th.
Yes.
If you get me a rock for my birthday, I will never speak to you again.
Stop.
No.
So Marguerite says, I like that we're talking about something light and fun this morning. Marguerite, glad you're with us, but let's transition into the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about here today. So
Rosemary,
once again, go ahead.
I want to bring up her comment. She says, thanks for all you're doing for the CEOs. And really, all we're doing is starting the conversation and having the conversation here. But I've learned so much. We've all learned so much. And it's really important to talk about the serious topics as well.
Lori says, critical convo is certainly important, but so is chit chat. And yeah, we're all down for that. But I think that when there's stuff going on, that it's important to address it. And that's the benefit of this kind of a format and this kind of show where we have no script, there's really no rundown, there's no timing that we have to make sure we're hitting and our bosses aren't yelling at us to move on. You know what I mean?
In our ears, wrap up.
Right, keep going. Exactly. Here comes the Doc Show. No, Howard, don't go. We'd love to have you along for the ride. Because there's some interesting updates here coming out of what's going on in the corrections officers strike. And I think it's interesting because at Wendy in particular, and maybe this is maybe a limited conversation here today because so much of this continues from really the last 11 days. Mm-hmm. But today at Wendy, they are kind of not going to see CEOs on the line today. It's going to be more of the wives and the family members who are out there.
Look at that sign. My daddy is a hero and deserves more. And this green sign says, please keep my daddy safe. And that's the stuff that tugs at your heartstrings. Right. And that's what we want to bring. John just put a link to one of our stories in the comments there. It's the voices of wives of corrections officers. So they're going to be the ones on the picket lines at Wendy today, sharing what the impact is on them. I mean, the one was saying her husband is just getting used to this point, 24-hour shifts. Right. We don't know when we'll see him again.
So I shared with you the email that I got a couple of days ago, and as Lori says, who would want to work in prisons, although it's necessary? God bless the CEOs, make it safe. The wives are saying that the CEOs who are out there are just mentally and physically drained, and it just kind of plays into the overall story of how they are when they are at work, when they come home, and this kind of highlights the impact of the family, on the family. Anita saying, CEOs' wives giving their hubbies a break. Hold the line, ladies. Daniel says, I've been at Lakeview a couple of times supporting our CEOs. And then, when it comes down to it, Diane also talking about burnout. Everyone talks about burnout in healthcare, but these CEOs work in harsher conditions with less staff and longer hours. And, a lot of the people who are working in healthcare might not necessarily agree with you, Diane, though, because there is a lot of burnout in healthcare, and a lot of these nurses and doctors and people who are working in ancillary positions would say that there just isn't enough staff, and that the patient to whatever ratio, nurse ratio, doctor ratio, environmental staff ratio is too high, and sometimes patients are not necessarily getting the care that they should be. Diane, though, saying that she works in healthcare. And Diane, I wonder, to your point, are you seeing those instances where patient care is suffering as a result of higher patient to nurse or staff ratios?
Yeah, and today is day 11 of this strike. We are in the second week of this. The end of 3 days of negotiations was yesterday, and the state is doubling down, tripling down on telling these workers to get back to work.
Right.
They're now sending out voicemails to these CEOs, and the message, what does it even say? Like, you're a part of an illegal strike. You have to get back. You will face penalties.
Do we have that sound by any chance, John, that we can play? Okay. He's going to get that. The voicemail that you can hear where they were sending that out to staff members from inside the prisons. It's just on top of what's already come out of Albany. And, there really hasn't been much coming out of Albany. Yesterday, there was talk about another day of mediation, and would something come of it? I reached out to the person in charge of mediation, and he said there definitely won't be anything coming out yesterday. Anita says CEOs impact the whole community. These guys and girls are out there in the community being scout leaders, coaches, doing so many things, and all of these hours are draining them to the point where they can't do these things with their own children and your children. Lori saying yesterday at the Attica facility in Wyoming, guys and women had support of our local fire department going by with trucks from the entire county. It was special. Lori saying there are certain jobs that cannot be stripped to bare bones and keep it safe. Kim, glad you're with us, of course. It made me think of when they closed Collins on lockdown for days, then days later they're on the picket line. Okay, so that's an interesting comment because, here we are. Now, New York State Police are investigating, along with docs, I think like an internal affairs department almost.
Mm-hmm. Like special investigations.
Yeah, what happened inside Collins leading up to that lockdown? And what are they trying to say here about that investigation? And, kind of what Kim's alluding to here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, but, it seems as if you're trying to say, something's fishy here.
One led to the other. You have this frisk and lockdown for days at Collins. They recover 23 weapons. It's a little contradictory. There were threats, and it seems like there were many incidents going on in there, but we don't know exactly what happened in there. So now they're investigating this, and then, of course, days after this, at Collins, at Elmira, and a bunch of other facilities statewide, they go on strike right after this happens.
So, what will that investigation lead to? And will we find out sooner rather than later what that investigation leads to is, I think, a major question, really, because is there something that's not being said here? We saw those contradictory statements come out from docs, and it was kind of like, well, what's really going on?
Mm-hmm.
And what are they not saying
Was
here?
there use of force? Was there not use of force? Apparently, there's going to be body camera video that they're going to be going through, and I would love to see that.
Everyone. I mean, if they want to increase transparency, which we were talking about yesterday, then they should release it to the entire state. Mark saying the state's just being a bunch of bullies. Cindy says the community support that each of these jails are getting is amazing. Hard to believe the governor is still so blind. Diamond, I don't think it's about who works harder or I'm tougher conditions. It's how they are treated and repaid for their individual jobs. Let's face it, she says, they don't all do the same level of work, so to speak. Kim says the CEOs don't want money. They just want protection, do their job. I think they need to be armed.
Caitlin says it's so weird that you guys can usually get the story, but with this situation, there's no information, and the people involved are so tight-lipped. She's saying the officials here from the state, not the CEOs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. This is typical of Albany. There is so much bureaucratic red tape to get anything any information to the public. Public information that should be public doesn't come
to the public.
There's something wrong with that. Especially from an administration that preached transparency from the get-go, and we're not really seeing a lot of transparency. The governor. Go ahead, John.
Just heads up, we do have the voicemail now.
Let's play it.
I'm contacted because there's an ongoing illegal strike of corrections officers. AWOL employees will be docked pay, jeopardize their health insurance, risk termination, be subject to strike penalties, and risk further civil and criminal penalties.
Okay. So,
imagine getting that voicemail.
Right. And now here's some breaking information that we are just finding out via some documentation that we have to go digging for.
Mm-hmm.
We're now learning that Docs and New York State wants to set up a website that would basically allow people who've been served all this paperwork to follow along and say, okay, you've got to, if you're being served paperwork, you've got to now check in with this website to make sure that you're at court dates, to make sure that you are watching as the case progresses. And that's something that's going to be argued in court now, it seems.
It's going to be long. We're going to be talking about this. The ramifications are going to be huge. We're going to be in the court cases. We're going to be talking about whether or not they hire more. Are they going to close more prisons? And now Robin says, has any of this made its way to Capitol Hill or the White House yet?
And so I don't know the answer to that, to be frank.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something we can find out for sure. I'm going to argue that, a lot of our state leaders know about this. Leaders who are from New York State on Capitol Hill. But I would also maybe say something along the lines of it's not really a federal issue. It's more of a state's issue.
Which is why it's kind of been concentrated here.
Right.
Derek was he at Wendy yesterday or Attica?
Attica.
Derek was at Attica yesterday, and he got reaction to that voicemail from former corrections officers, and they were like, this is a threat. This is a threat from the state for corrections officers. And Michael says it's political bullying.
Right. And, a lot of these officers are tired of that. They're being threatened, according to these retired COs, inside the facilities every single day. And now here's just another threat, now they say, from New York State. Lori says they just want able bodies. The government doesn't care about the well-being of these poor workers, overworked and underpaid. And, what the state would say is that, okay, well, we've reduced the number of people who are inside these facilities, so it really shouldn't be that big of a deal. But, there's social media posts out there and, reporting that hasn't been confirmed necessarily that shows attacks have gone up as well.
And of course, we want to share, all sides of the story here and talk about not only the corrections officers, but also the people who are incarcerated inside. Robert says, keep the inmates safe.
Right.
And a lot of people who have family members who are incarcerated, who are inmates, are like, I'm worried about my loved ones. Are they safe in there?
And so I've actually been chit-chatting back and forth with Nicole, who has a loved one in Attica. Basically, she's frustrated that their stories are not being told in terms of the inmate story. And this is, really CO heavy, because I think what she's arguing is that no one's safe.
And that's what Cindy says. The way it is right now, no one's safe.
Right. So it's hard. And I think that a lot of people are concerned on both sides. Diane says, I believe both in bad situations, talk about healthcare, and in this situation. And yes, poor staffing does trickle down to the patient. But once again, this is a situation where hospitals have to step up for staff, just like corrections. Nurses are making progress. The state collects and finds working shortages in hospitals, but the same government is turning its back, she says, on COs.
Ooh.
What does that tell you?
I mean...
She also goes on to say Hochul is abusing her power. She overwrote a no delivery of legal documents on day of worship.
I think that's what the cease and desist were coming on Sunday.
Ah, interesting. Okay. Michael, no one wants to work where no one has your back. It's a hard job. This has been going on forever. Inmates have more rights than COs. It's crazy. And Caitlin says, yes, inmates matter too. They already have their consequences. No need to make it worse. Stressful environments can bring out the worst of anyone. It's a conversation that I think will continue here. There is no end in sight, right? I mean, it's unfortunate to say, but the governor wants to close 5 prisons with 90 days notice. Is Collins one of them? No one's really said, but inmates are being moved out. That's part of her executive budget. We are seeing corrections officers being served paperwork, and we are hearing the voicemails going out. But nothing seems to be wrapping up in Albany despite all of these
different actions, all of these voices being heard, all of these, we heard the governor say she didn't know what the issues were, and the COs have been striking for 11 days.
Right. It's interesting. Daniel, their one complaint is too much drugs being smuggled into our state prisons. Anita says Hochul is coming with threats instead of answers. Tony, who we have spoken with, a former inmate, incarcerated individual, there will be riots, he says, because of what's going on. When it happens, there's going to be a whole different issue Hochul won't know how to handle. So Caitlin wonders, why is this so hard to get info? Where is the transparency? We've been saying that, but Hochul ran with that. So why can't we get any info unless it's from somebody risking it to give it to us? That's a great question. And so let me kind of lift the curtain for you. I love lifting the curtain for you.
This is Ed lifting the curtain.
Here I am. I also just want to lean back because I feel like
what's going on with your mic?
I'm very uncomfortable.
These chairs are a little rough.
So let me lift the curtain for you. Anyone in New York State can file what's called a Freedom of Information Law request. It's also known as FOIL, FOIL. And in filing one of these requests, you can request access to and a copy of any document or anything. It could be a recording, a text message, an email. It could be anything that is communicated with and used by the state. Now, not everything is accessible through FOIL, but some things are. And
you can always at least ask.
And
it's
that's
a
my
request.
point.
You can be denied, or they can say yes, or they can say yes, but. They can redact certain things, take things out. They can give you some pages, but not other pages, and then you end up having to pay.
Well, and so here's how FOIL works. You file this request. The state or the entity that you're foiling from is basically allowed to have 5 days before they respond. So there's 1 week's delay. 5 business days. They respond saying, okay, we have received your request. We'll keep you posted. They then have 20 days to answer that request. So now we're going on a month, 25 days of no answer feasibly. And they can come back on that 20th day and say, we need more time because we haven't really found what you're looking for. These records exist, but we need more time to review it, which is exactly what's happening with me when I'm trying to get access to and a copy of those complaints from those COs that have been filed since August. So
Lori says, is FOIL state or federal?
FOIL is state. So it's the Freedom of Information Law in New York State, and then the Freedom of Information Act
FOIA
on the federal level. There are so many things that are exempt from FOIL, but there are so many things that are not. And so if you could be ultra specific in what you're looking for, then chances are you can get it. What they're telling me is that they found these documents. There are potentially responsive documents to my request in terms of what these complaints are, but they're reviewing them for redactions. They're reviewing them to see, if there's personal information, which just means to me that there's a lot of stuff to go through if they keep kicking the can down the road. Now, again, by March 7th, I should have a response.
Right.
It's irritating, really.
So that's how that goes, and it's a lot of waiting. But eventually, you should be able to get some transparency. But who knows what you'll get, or if you'll ever get those documents.
Right. So Chris is saying that New York State Senator Salazar, who introduced the HALT Act initially, Julia Salazar, is trying to double down by introducing S3763, which is a Senate bill. Basically, he says, or she says, Chris, I'm sorry, HALT 2.0. Fire marshals took over a month to respond. Tony says Collins holds 1,800 inmates, I believe, and Hochul said only 40 were moved. Those were the inmates that had spent time in a maximum facility. That's not the case. They brought several buses in, and those buses have at least 40 seats.
I think that's about closing the
40
prisons.
inmates. Yeah, interesting. And this is my point, Michael. New York bureaucratic baloney. They are trying to wear you out. And see, that's the thing.
Can't wear Ed Ranch out.
No, I'm like a dog with a bone. Like the second I have an opportunity to foil something, I'm like, I can't wait to get these documents. I'm like the biggest nerd.
You give him like an 80-page lawsuit and he's in there.
I love it.
Page by page by page.
Highlighting, because sometimes there are just such juicy and good details involved. And like, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was happening and it's happening on my dime.
Mm-hmm.
Of course I have a right to know about this.
Jan says you're a pit bull. You raised the pit bull, Jan.
Thank you. I learned from the best. Get it. I love it is what Michael says. It's true. I mean, you have the right to know what's going on in your community and how your taxpayer dollars are being used. Now, what do I say about that? Not everyone wants you to know what's going on because, hey, guess what? Some things are done without you knowing.
Mm-hmm. A lot of things are done without you knowing.
Right. So, our job is to find out and get the truth.
Yep.
Exactly. Bookworm. I love that. So we're going to stay on top of that one for you. And, we're going to send Leah Lando out today to, oh no.
What happened?
Oh, okay, good. I thought I was reading this wrong.
No, he said he loves you.
Thank you, Tony. Like the DEC, I'm sure is pissed at me right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm over it. Because we called out their BS. The state is the same, it's the state. It's the state. The governor's office, waiting for documents from them. We're waiting for documents from the Department of Corrections. I mean, like, there are so many things that are still just hanging out there that haven't been answered.
We'll work to get them. We'll see. Lori says you rock.
Oh, like one from the pit?
The pit rock. Can I vent for a second? I'm having a rough day today.
Please. Oh my God, you got a flat tire.
I have a flat tire. I made a rough turn. I don't know if it's a pothole or something, but coming home last night from dinner with my friends.
Crap.
Oh, did you get something?
I forgot that the cleaning lady is coming. And
Shoot. Is she
okay,
there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, anyway, I have a flat tire. I'm so upset about it. I was driving here and I was like, you hit something and you're like, ooh, I don't know what's gonna happen. I drove home last night, it was fine. I started driving this morning and I was like, ooh, something feels a little bit off. As I'm driving down the 33, I'm like, it might be a flat. And then that ding happens.
I hate that.
Low tire pressure. Anita's right, it was probably a pothole. Who knows what it was? Connie had a flat tire yesterday too. I'm so upset. My dad has the AAA information. The AAA information isn't working. I don't know how I'm going to get there. So I have an appointment to get it fixed, but I have all these other things going on. I have friends coming into town, and obviously I have one car, so I'm going to be driving them. So I need to get this fixed before they come in town for the weekend. I have this pimple on my head, this crater that I can't get to get off my face.
Can I tell you what works? There are these hero patches.
I love those. I just ran out of them, of course.
Let me also tell you what works. There are also these patches called Zitstica.
Zitstica.
Yes. I don't know if we can find them quickly, but they have like these, not that we're like advertising products here or endorsed by any of these products, but there is, they're really good. They've got these like micro darts in them.
Okay.
So they insert the salicylic acid into your pore or the pimple that is just not going to pop.
Okay.
Here they are. Right. The Zitskills. They're expensive though. They only come in like a 4-pack and they're like $12 or $13.
Anita says she can't see that pimple. When we take it back full, I'm sure you can see the pimple. It's huge, and it's been I know. Lori says a dab of toothpaste. That's the old trick. It's right there.
Just pop it. Can I see it?
I tried to pop it. It's like not coming to a head, really. I tried to pop it this morning. I tried to pop it last night. Jan doesn't like it. She says she's gonna vomit. Marguerite, thank you for supporting me. She said, I hope I have a better day. As long as I can get AAA to give me a tow and my dad can figure it out, I think I'll feel much better. But I was really looking forward to going home, taking a nice nap. I have a long shoot this morning.
You'll be fine. It'll all work out.
And it's only Thursday.
Nope, tomorrow's Friday. Look at the bright side, baby girl. We got a lot to look forward to this weekend. Listen, we got to get the show on the road. We're going to send Leah Lando out to Wendy to cover the voices of those wives who are supporting their husbands, their brothers, whomever, their sons, out on the line, giving them the day off so that they can rest and relax and, kind of get back into the swing of things. So we'll bring you those voices tonight on 7 News at 5 and 6 and on WKBW.com.
Friday tomorrow. My dad says he's trying. Thank you for your efforts. Thanks for your help. My Aunt Diane says leave the pimple alone. I will. Bye, guys.
Great day.